What's up? My name is Eric Butler. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am back, and from Fox News, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs vetoes bill banning use of names, pronouns trans students identify by. So I'm not even sure how we got here. These people don't care about anything besides their radical agenda. They're never going to fix any problems. They're never going to balance the budget. They're only going to talk about making sure that a little boy has the right to cut his junk off and change his name. It doesn't make any sense. This is how far from reality we've gotten in 2023. They say the Arizona governor said the legislation attacked transgender children. So that alone is completely off base. There is no such thing as a transgender child. There is somebody that you have manipulated into mutilating their body, somebody that you have confused on purpose to gain complete and total control of them and turn them into a pharmaceutical zombie for the rest of their life. There's no such thing as a transformer child. It doesn't make sense. It reminds me of that scene from the old movie Big Daddy, where the kid says he wants his name to be Frankenstein. Remember that was a joke back in the year 2002 or whenever that movie came out? Fact check me on that. It was a joke. It was something funny. We laughed about it. Now we are expected to take this all very seriously, and if you don't, you will, of course, be labeled all the worst things in the book. So they say, Katie Hobbs, the governor of Arizona, has vetoed legislation that would have banned teachers from referring to transgender students by their preferred names and pronouns. And when did this become such a huge deal? We're still just talking about a minuscule sliver of the population, right? First of all, the transformer community as a whole is tiny. And then if you want to even believe that it's real, the students, the children, is even smaller, but they're pretending as though this is a huge deal. It's absolutely not. Now, maybe is it a little silly that we're writing bills banning the use of the names that kids choose for themselves? Perhaps, right? I mean, people use nicknames all the time, so I don't think it's much different from that, and I don't think maybe it shouldn't be banned to use the name that the kid wants them to use, but it certainly should not be forced upon teachers. And I guess it's not in this case, but how far removed from reality do you have to be to believe that it's a child's right to choose their name? And it goes without saying, but there's a whole bunch of other things that kids are not allowed to do, like smoke weed and drink beer and get tattoos and have sex and buy cigarettes. All that type of stuff they're not allowed to do. But for some reason, it's perfectly acceptable and normal and encouraged that they subscribe to this extreme gender ideology. And it's also weird that there's an entire month called Pride Month dedicated to this sort of thing. But then when schools are forced to tell the parents about the ideology that the children are practicing, then they're not quite so proud of it. They want to keep that secret. That's just between us. So in June, we're proud. But in May and July, we don't really want to tell you anything about it because we're not proud of what we actually did. I mean, give me a break. This is just beyond parody. And that's why things like this were parody. That's why you had In Living Color and White Chicks and Joanna Man. Those were all jokes. And now you got young teenage boys beating girls all the way up through college because they claim to be, this has happened far too fast for my liking. Even me being from the San Francisco Bay Area where a lot of this stuff is birthed, no pun intended, it wasn't like this a handful of years ago. It continues. The Arizona measure would have allowed schools to call a student by their preferred identities other than the one assigned to them at birth if they received permission from their parent. While Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs said the measure was an attack, and this is the thing, it's always life and death with them. Oh, they're attacking you. No, it's very simply somebody that doesn't agree with your weirdo position. It's not an attack. In fact, You could ask Dave Chappelle. They are the ones attacking other people. You could ask Billboard Chris. You could ask a handful of people that have literally been physically attacked by these extremists. But as soon as somebody says, you know what, I don't want to do that, then you label it an attack. And we know that the only thing that has to happen for something to be true is for them to say it. It gets no questions. It gets no pushback. It gets no reasoning. They don't have to show their work. It's just the simple fact that a Democrat establishment hack shill said it. Therefore, it's true. End of discussion. So it's an attack. Give me a break. And this bullet point here, it doesn't make sense, right? It's all so confusing. It's all about chaos and control. The Arizona measure would have allowed schools to call a student by their preferred identities, other than the one assigned to them by their parents, if they received permission from the parents. Okay. While Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs said the measure was an attack, a Republican senator said the proposal was meant to help parents become aware that their children wanted to identify by another name. Again, we've drifted so far away from reality that this shouldn't even have to be a conversation. But here it is, mainstream news on Fox, right? A bill about the name that you're going to call a high schooler, an elementary schooler, by some lady who arguably, I mean, look, there's a lot of discrepancies. I don't know what you can and can't say on YouTube, but it's pretty clear that this woman, Katie Hobbs, knew the machine was going to go to work for her, right? Do you literally have a woman running for governor with a fraction of the social media following of Kari Lake and says, I'm not going to debate? She's slapping her constituents in the face and saying, I don't have to tell you what I'm about. I'm going to get the position anyways, and it doesn't matter what you think. We're in control, and we're going to trans the kids. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs has vetoed a bill that would have compelled schools not to refer to transformer students by the names or pronouns they identify with. And again, this is just how bad it's gotten. That bill shouldn't even have to exist. It shouldn't have been written in the first place. And, as long as we're being 100% honest, I don't think that it even makes sense that you would ban a teacher. Look, if a teacher wants to go along with it, a bunch of them are, I'm sure, then fine, so be it. The point is, they shouldn't be forced to do it against their will, right? But this is also confusing. The waters have been so muddied up that nothing makes sense anymore, right? So you should not be banned from calling a student what they want to be called, but you also should not be forced to call a student what they want to be called. You should just call them their name. Instead of coming up with new ways to target and isolate our children, it's like they don't even see what they're saying. You are the one targeting and isolating them. You are the one confusing them. You are the one forcing this extreme ideology, knowing that it's not real. This woman, 60-something years old, she knows that a little boy can't become a little girl or vice versa, but they're pretending anyways to confuse these children, gain complete control of their brain, make anybody who disagrees with them an enemy, and turn them into a lifelong pharmaceutical customer, in my opinion. Instead of coming up with ways to target and isolate our children, we should be working together to create an Arizona where everyone has the freedom to be who they are without fear of harassment or judgment. Yeah, and I think Arizona kind of had that. You could at least walk around with a red hat and not be afraid that you were going to get attacked by a mob of crazy people with terminal Trump derangement syndrome and the like. Under the bill, employees or independent contractors of a school district or charter school would be prohibited from knowingly calling a student age 18 or younger by a pronoun other than the one assigned to them at birth. So now Fox even is using this assigned to them at birth, which obviously comes from the AFAB, like their gender. Oh, well, I'm not really a woman. I'm not really a boy. I was assigned that at birth. No, it's your name, right? So they're taking that bit from that little piece of pseudoscience and attaching it to this bit of manipulation. And as soon as you start playing in their language, as soon as you start dealing in their currency, you've pretty much lost, right? So there's no coming back from that. You're in the mud with them. You're going to get dirty. You should reject their manipulation and They're redefining of terms at all costs. Republican State Senator John Kavanaugh, the bill's sponsor, said the proposal was about making sure parents were aware that their children wanted to identify by another name. And that it shouldn't have even got this far, right? Because that all comes from weirdos trying to confuse your children because, in my opinion, of course, they know that they can't have children. So they got to take yours. This is all completely despicable, but I guess par for the course in the backwards, bizarro clown world that we live in. And it all happened so fast, right? I think this was accelerated most likely by Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump and Twitter, right? So these people, they got on Twitter and they started finding each other, and the big tech media started airdropping this stuff and censoring people and forcing them to capitulate, all while they were going through this horrible brainwashing and manipulation of Trump being the worst guy, despite him being on The Apprentice for 15 seasons. Different story, I digress. None of this makes sense. Will we hit a wall? Will the pendulum swing back? I don't know if there's a way out of it. And it's really sad. So, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe.